Hello and welcome to the Sleepy Universe. Tonight, we'll leave the worries of the day behind and journey together through the wonders of space, science, history, and the mysteries of existence. So, get comfortable, settle into your favorite sleeping position, and let your mind gently wander as we explore the universe. Before Earth was born, the dust and gas that became our planet. Tonight we are traveling further back than almost any story can reach. Back beyond the first forests, beyond the dinosaurs, beyond the oceans, beyond the moon itself, further back than the very first sunrise ever seen from Earth. Tonight we begin our journey before our planet even existed. A journey spanning billions of years. A journey to a place where there was no Earth, no continents, no oceans, no mountains, no life, not even a single grain of sand. Only darkness and the faint glow of distant stars. It is surprisingly difficult to imagine a universe without Earth. Our planet feels permanent, ancient, unchanging. It has always been beneath our feet. The sky has always stretched above our heads. The moon has always followed us through the night. Yet every rock beneath your feet, every drop of water in every ocean, every tree, every cloud, and every living thing, all began as something entirely different. Long before Earth existed, every atom that would one day become part of our world was scattered across the galaxy. The iron inside your blood, the calcium inside your bones, the oxygen you breathe with every gentle breath. None of it was originally born on Earth. In fact, Earth inherited almost everything it is made from. To understand where our story begins, we have to travel back around 4.5 billion years. But even that isn't far enough, because before there could be planets, there first had to be stars. And before stars, there were enormous clouds of gas and microscopic dust drifting silently through the Milky Way. Astronomers call these clouds nebulae. At first glance, they appear peaceful, beautiful ribbons of glowing color stretching for light years across space. But hidden within them is extraordinary potential. These vast clouds are the birthplaces of entire solar systems. Under gravity, regions of gas and dust slowly collapse, eventually giving rise to new stars surrounded by disks of material from which planets can form. Imagine floating silently inside one of these immense clouds. There is no sound, no wind, no horizon, only endless particles, moving so slowly that millions of years pass almost unnoticed. Time itself begins to feel different here. 1,000 human lifetimes would disappear in the blink of a cosmic eye. Then, something changes. Perhaps a nearby giant star reaches the end of its life. Its final explosion sends an enormous shockwave racing across the galaxy. Or perhaps gravity simply continues its patient work. Whatever the cause, the quiet cloud begins to collapse. Very, very slowly. Tiny particles drift toward one another. Dust meets dust. Gas gathers with gas. What once stretched across unimaginable distances now begins to pull together. Not over days, not over centuries, but over millions of years. At the center of the collapsing cloud, pressure rises. Temperatures climb ever higher. Eventually, a newborn star ignites. That star is our sun. The sun formed roughly 4.6 billion years ago as the center of a rotating cloud of gas and dust, with the remaining material spreading into a disk around it. Around this young star, countless tiny grains continue their silent dance. They collide gently. Sometimes they bounce apart. Sometimes they stick together. Piece by piece, they begin building something larger. Pebbles become rocks. Rocks become boulders. Boulders become mountains drifting through space. Each collision adds another tiny piece to a growing world. Gravity quietly takes over. The larger these bodies become, the stronger their pull. More rocks arrive. More dust settles. The process accelerates. It is astonishing to think that every mountain you have ever seen, every grain of sand on every beach, every crystal hidden deep beneath the earth's crust, was once nothing more than tiny specks of dust floating through empty space. If you could watch these events unfold at normal speed, almost nothing would appear to happen. Millions of years would pass with barely any visible movement. The universe is incredibly patient. It never rushes. It doesn't need to. Given enough time, dust becomes planets. Hydrogen becomes stars. Simple atoms become forests, oceans, and eventually, people capable of wondering where they came from. Perhaps that is one of the most beautiful ideas in all of science. Everything around us began with extraordinary simplicity. Not magic, not sudden perfection, but countless tiny changes, building upon one another for billions of years. As the young sun continued to shine brighter, its growing family of worlds slowly took shape. Mercury formed close to the heat. Venus followed. Farther out, one particular collection of rock continued growing. Collision after collision, layer upon layer. Its surface glowed like molten metal. Its skies were filled with vaporized stone. No oceans, no blue skies, no life, just a blazing young world, still being assembled. That world would one day become home, Earth, but it was nothing like the peaceful planet we know today. 2. The young, violent Earth, a world of fire, oceans, and endless change. We continue our journey through the deepest chapters of Earth's history, a journey that began before our planet even existed. We traveled through the darkness of space, where tiny particles of dust and gas slowly gathered together. We watched a young star ignite. We watched the sun awaken, and around it, a small, rocky world began to form. A world that would one day become our home, Earth. But the Earth of this time was nothing like the peaceful blue planet we know today. There were no forests, no rivers, no mountains covered in snow, no gentle waves rolling onto beaches. There was no life, no voices, no footsteps, no one looking up at the sky and wondering where they came from. The young Earth was a world of fire, a glowing sphere of molten rock, floating silently through the darkness of space. Its surface was constantly changing. Nothing was permanent. Nothing was still. The planet was being built, one violent moment at a time. Imagine standing on the surface of this ancient world. Although, in reality, you would not be standing for very long. The ground beneath your feet would not be solid rock. It would be oceans of molten material, rivers of lava stretching toward the horizon, volcanoes rising everywhere, the sky filled with ash and gases, a planet still cooling from its own creation. Earth was receiving a constant rain of destruction from space. The early solar system was crowded, not the calm arrangement of planets we see today. Instead, countless pieces of rock and metal traveled through the darkness, leftover pieces from the formation of the planets. Some were tiny, no larger than grains of dust. Others were enormous, mountain-sized objects traveling thousands of kilometers every hour. When they struck Earth, they released unimaginable energy. The impact would melt rock, create enormous explosions, and send debris flying back into space. Yet these collisions were also part of Earth's growth. Every impact delivered new material, new minerals, new elements. The planet was slowly gathering the ingredients it would need for the future. The violence of creation was shaping a world. Deep inside the young Earth, another transformation was taking place. The planet was beginning to separate. At first, Earth was a mixture of many different materials: rock, metal, dust. But gravity began pulling everything into order. Heavy elements sank toward the center. Iron and nickel moved deeper and deeper until they formed Earth's core. Above them, lighter materials remained, creating the mantle. And eventually, the thin outer layer we call the crust, the ground beneath our feet today, was born from this ancient separation. The mountains, the continents, the ocean floors, all connected to events that happened billions of years ago. But Earth still had another incredible event waiting. A collision unlike anything before. A moment that would create something familiar to everyone who has ever looked into the night sky. The moon. Early in Earth's history, a planet-sized object crossed paths with our young world. Scientists believe this object, sometimes called Theia, was roughly the size of Mars. The impact was beyond imagination. Two worlds collided. The energy released was almost impossible to comprehend. Earth's surface was destroyed. Massive amounts of material were thrown into space. For a time, our planet may have been surrounded by a glowing ring of molten debris, a temporary world of fire, circling another world of fire. But slowly, gravity began bringing those pieces together. Small fragments collided. They joined, they grew, and over time, a new world formed. The moon, a companion that would remain beside Earth for billions of years. The same moon that lights the night sky today was born from one of the most violent moments in our planet's history. And perhaps that is one of the most beautiful patterns in nature. Creation and destruction are often connected. The things that seem like endings can sometimes become beginnings. As millions of years passed, Earth slowly began to cool. The endless oceans of molten rock began hardening. A thin crust formed. Volcanoes continued erupting, but the planet was becoming more stable. And then, something remarkable began happening. Water. At first, Earth water existed mostly as vapor, released from volcanoes, floating high above the surface. A thick atmosphere surrounded the young planet, but as temperatures fell, the vapor began changing, condensing, falling. For thousands, then millions of years, rain began pouring onto the young Earth. A world that had once been covered in fire was slowly becoming a world covered in water. The first oceans began forming. Deep valleys filled. The surface changed. The planet began to resemble something new. Not the Earth we know, but a distant ancestor. A beginning. A place where the ingredients for the next great chapter were waiting. Because inside these ancient oceans, something impossible was about to happen. The universe had spent billions of years creating stars. Stars had created the elements. Those elements had created planets. And now, on one small planet around one ordinary star, those elements were about to create something new. Life, tiny, fragile, almost invisible, but powerful enough to transform the entire world. 3. The first life, tiny organisms that slowly changed the planet. we continue our journey through the deepest history of Earth, a journey across billions of years, to a time before forests, before animals, before anything that would look familiar to human eyes. We have travelled to the beginning. We watched stars form from clouds of gas and dust. We watched our sun ignite. We watched Earth become a world of fire, then slowly transform into a planet of oceans. But now, something extraordinary is about to happen. Something the universe had been preparing for since the beginning of time. Life. At first, Earth was silent. The oceans stretched across the planet. Volcanoes continued releasing gases into the atmosphere. Lightning flashed through dark skies. Waves moved across an empty world. But beneath those ancient waters, something was beginning. Not something large, not something powerful, something almost impossibly small. The first living things on Earth were tiny, invisible to the human eye, simple compared with every creature that would come later. They had no eyes, no bones, no muscles, no brains. They did not walk. They did not hunt. They simply existed. And yet, they were the beginning of every living thing that would ever follow. Every tree, every bird, every whale, every human being, all connected to those first microscopic pioneers. The exact moment life began remains one of science's greatest mysteries. Somewhere in the ancient oceans, chemistry became biology. Simple molecules began arranging themselves in new ways. Structures formed, patterns appeared, and eventually, something incredible happened. Something that could make copies of itself. The first steps toward life. Imagine traveling back to those ancient oceans. The world would feel completely alien. The continents we know today did not exist in their current form. The atmosphere was different. The oceans were different. The sky above would not have looked like the peaceful blue sky above us now. There were no birds, no insects, no sounds of animals moving through forests. Only water, rock, volcanoes, and the quiet beginning of life. Some scientists believe the first life may have developed near deep ocean hydrothermal vents, places where hot water escaped from cracks in the Earth's crust. These underwater environments were rich with minerals and energy. Hidden beneath kilometers of ocean, they created small worlds of their own, dark, pressurized, ancient, yet full of possibility. Life began slowly, very slowly. For hundreds of millions of years, the greatest achievement on Earth was simply surviving. The first organisms faced an unforgiving planet. Asteroid impacts continued. Volcanoes reshaped the surface. The climate changed. The oceans changed. But these tiny organisms endured. They adapted. They evolved. They continued. And eventually, one group of ancient life discovered something that would transform Earth forever. A way to use the energy of the sun. These organisms became known as cyanobacteria, tiny living cells floating through the oceans. They captured sunlight. They used it for energy. And as a result, they released a gas that would change the entire planet. Oxygen. At first, this was not a good thing. The early Earth was a world without oxygen. Many organisms living at the time were adapted to that environment. To them, oxygen was dangerous, a poison. But slowly, over millions of years, oxygen began building up. The oceans changed. The atmosphere changed. The chemistry of the entire planet changed. Earth was entering a new age, the Great Oxygenation Event, a transformation so enormous that it allowed entirely new forms of life to appear. The oxygen created by these tiny organisms eventually made complex life possible. Without them, there would be no forests, no animals, no humans. The air you breathe today was influenced by creatures that existed billions of years before the first dinosaur walked across the earth. It is one of the most humbling connections in nature. Every breath you take is linked to an ancient world hidden beneath forgotten oceans. But life remains simple for a very long time. For billions of years, Earth belonged mostly to microscopic organisms, while mountains rose and disappeared, while continents moved across the planet, while stars were born and died. Tiny life continued quietly beneath the surface. There was no rush. The universe works on a different timescale. 1,000,000 years is not a long time. 1,000,000,000 years is not an ending. It is simply another chapter. And slowly, very slowly, life began experimenting. Cells began working together. Some organisms became more complex. New possibilities appeared. The simple beginnings of life started building towards something greater. The oceans became laboratories. Evolution became the experiment. And after billions of years of preparation, Earth was ready for another great transformation. A world of strange creatures, ancient oceans filled with unfamiliar life, forests covering the land, and eventually, the giants that would capture our imagination forever. The dinosaurs. But before the age of giants, Earth had to pass through countless forgotten worlds. Worlds filled with creatures that left only fossils behind. Their stories hidden beneath our feet, waiting to be discovered. Because the history of Earth is not only the story of the creatures we remember, it is also the story of the billions of lives that came before, the ones that existed quietly, the ones that changed the planet, the ones that made our existence possible. And as you rest tonight, remember something remarkable. You are connected to the first life that ever appeared on Earth. The same story that began in ancient oceans continues inside you. A story billions of years old. A story still being written. 4. The Age of Giants. Dinosaurs, ancient forests, and forgotten worlds. We continue our journey through the extraordinary history of Earth. A journey that has carried us across billions of years. From the silent clouds of dust that existed before our planet was born, to a young world covered in fire, to ancient oceans where the first tiny sparks of life began. For most of Earth's history, life was small, invisible, hidden, but slowly, something began to change. Life was becoming more complex. The oceans filled with strange creatures. Plants began spreading across the land, and eventually, Earth entered one of the most fascinating periods in its entire history, the Age of Giants, a time when enormous creatures ruled the planet, a time when the Earth would become a world almost impossible for us to imagine. But before the dinosaurs, there were other forgotten worlds. Long before giant reptiles walked across the continents, the land was already changing. Ancient plants were spreading. The first forests appeared. Towering trees covered parts of the planet. But these forests would look very different from those we know today. There were no flowers, no birds singing among the branches, no familiar woodland sounds. Instead, the forests were filled with strange plants, giant ferns, and towering trees unlike anything alive today. The atmosphere itself was different. Oxygen levels were much higher than they are now. The world was warmer. The continents were arranged differently. Earth was not the planet we recognize from maps and photographs. It was an alien world, even though it was our own. Then, around 250 million years ago, one of the greatest disasters in Earth's history occurred. The planet changed dramatically. Massive volcanic eruptions released enormous amounts of gases into the atmosphere. The climate shifted, the oceans changed, and life faced a devastating crisis: the Permian mass extinction, the largest extinction event Earth has ever experienced. A moment when the majority of species disappeared forever. Entire groups of animals vanished. Ancient ecosystems collapsed. The planet became a quieter place. But Earth has always had a remarkable ability: recovery. After destruction, life begins again. New creatures appear. New ecosystems form. New chapters begin. And from the survivors of this ancient catastrophe, a new group would rise. The dinosaurs? At first, they were not the rulers of Earth. They were simply one group among many. Small creatures, living in the shadows. But over millions of years, they changed. They adapted. They evolved. And eventually, they became one of the most successful groups of animals ever to exist. For more than 160 million years, dinosaurs dominated the planet, longer than humans have existed, longer than recorded history, longer than our entire civilization. They lived through worlds that came and went. They watched continents move. They survived changing climates. They evolved into thousands of different forms. Some became enormous. The giants, creatures that would have looked impossible to us. Long-necked herbivores stretching longer than a house. Animals so large that a single step could shake the ground. Others became hunters, fast, intelligent, powerful, the famous predators of the ancient world. But dinosaurs were not monsters. They were animals. They lived. They searched for food. They protected their young. They competed. They survived, just as every creature on Earth has always done. Imagine walking through a Jurassic forest. The air would feel different. The plants would look unfamiliar. The sounds would come from creatures that have been silent for millions of years. A distant call from somewhere deep among the trees. Heavy footsteps moving across the ground. Wings passing through ancient skies. A world alive with movement. A world where humans had no place, because humans were still unimaginably far in the future. The dinosaurs were living their own story, a story that would continue for millions upon millions of years. But while dinosaurs ruled the land, another group quietly survived. Small, furry, almost unnoticed. The mammals. They lived beneath the shadows of the giants. Many were tiny. Some were active, mostly at night. They avoided the powerful creatures that controlled the planet. But they carried something important: potential. Because Earth's history is not always decided by the biggest creatures. Sometimes, the smaller survivors become the most important. Then, after more than 160 million years of dinosaur dominance, everything changed. A visitor arrived from space. An asteroid. A piece of another world traveling through the darkness. When it struck Earth, the consequences were unimaginable. The impact created a global disaster. Dust filled the atmosphere. The climate changed. Food chains collapsed. And many species disappeared forever, including the dinosaurs. But not all life was lost. Some creatures survived. And among those survivors, the mammals found a new opportunity. The world had changed. The giants were gone, and a new age was beginning. An age that would eventually lead to us. The age of mammals. the age of a small creature with a remarkable ability to think, to imagine, to wonder. But before humanity arrived, millions of years of evolution still had to pass. The continents would continue moving, the climate would continue changing, new species would rise, others would disappear, and eventually, one tiny branch of life would begin looking back at the entire story of Earth. A creature made from ancient stardust, a creature carrying billions of years of evolution inside every cell. 5. The rise of humanity. Our ancestors, imagination, language, and civilization. Tonight, we continue our journey through the incredible history of Earth. A journey that began before our planet had a name, before oceans, before forests, before the first creatures moved through ancient seas. For billions of years, Earth changed without anyone watching. Mountains rose, oceans formed, species appeared, species disappeared. The planet continued its endless transformation. And then, something remarkable happened. A creature appeared that could look back, a creature that could study the rocks beneath its feet and discover the story of worlds that existed long before it was born. Us, humanity. But our story did not begin with cities. It did not begin with technology. It did not begin with written words. It began quietly, in the forests and grasslands of ancient Africa. Millions of years ago, our earliest ancestors were very different from us. They were not human. They did not build cities. They did not create art. They lived within the natural world around them. But slowly, over immense stretches of time, small changes began to appear. Some ancestors began walking on two legs. This simple change would transform everything. Standing upright allowed their hands to become free. Hands that could carry, hands that could create, hands that could shape the world around them. Over countless generations, tools became more advanced. Stone became a way to cut, to hunt, to build, to survive. But perhaps the greatest tool humanity ever developed was not made from stone. It was the mind. The human brain became capable of something extraordinary. Imagine the ability to create things that did not exist, to picture places never visited, to remember experiences from years before, to dream about the future. This ability changed everything, because humans were no longer simply reacting to the world. We were imagining new ones. At some point in our distant past, humans discovered another powerful ability: storytelling. The ability to share thoughts, to pass knowledge from one person to another. A single discovery made by one person could survive long after they were gone. A lesson about hunting, a memory of a dangerous place, a story about the stars above. Knowledge could travel through generations, and slowly, humanity became something more than a collection of individuals. We became communities, groups connected by shared ideas. Around 10,000 years ago, another enormous change began. Humans started growing crops and domesticating animals. The age of agriculture began. For thousands of generations, humans had moved with the seasons, following food, following animals, following the changing landscapes. But now, many began staying in one place. Villages formed, then towns, then cities. Human civilization began. Across the planet, different cultures developed their own languages, their own traditions, their own ways of understanding existence. Humans looked at the night sky and wondered, what are the stars? Where did we come from? Are we alone? The same curiosity that once helped our ancestors survive now pushed us toward discovery. We built monuments, created art, developed mathematics, studied nature, recorded history, generation after generation, human knowledge grew. But humanity's journey was never simple. Civilizations rose, civilizations fell, wars were fought, discoveries were made, mistakes were repeated. The story of humanity is a story of incredible achievement and incredible challenge. Then came another turning point, a moment when humans began changing the planet faster than ever before. The Industrial Revolution. Machines transformed how we lived. Energy stored inside the earth for millions of years was released. Coal, oil, natural gas, cities expanded. Technology accelerated. The world became connected in ways our ancestors could never have imagined. A message could travel around the planet instantly. Knowledge could be shared with millions of people. Humans could explore places once thought impossible. And eventually, we looked beyond Earth itself. We left our planet. We traveled into space. We stood on the moon. We sent machines toward distant planets. And for the first time, Earth saw itself from the outside, a small blue world, floating alone in darkness. No borders, no divisions, just one fragile planet, one home. Everything humanity has ever known exists on that tiny sphere. Every person, every memory, every dream, every story. But perhaps the most extraordinary thing about humanity is not what we have built. It is that the universe created something capable of understanding itself. The atoms inside our bodies were created inside ancient stars. The elements that make us were forged billions of years ago. The water we drink has traveled through Earth's endless cycles. We are not visitors separate from this planet. We are part of its story. The Earth created life. Life created minds, and those minds began searching for meaning. Looking back, we realize something humbling. Human history is only a tiny moment, a brief flicker compared with the age of Earth. If the entire history of our planet was compressed into 1 year, human civilization would appear in the final moments. Yet, in those final moments, we discovered the universe. We discovered our own origins, and we began asking the biggest questions of all. Where did everything come from? Why are we here? What happens next? But the story of Earth does not end with humanity. Our planet has many chapters still ahead. The continents will continue moving. The oceans will continue changing. Life will continue evolving. And one day, far in the future, Earth itself will become something completely different. A final journey remains, a journey into the future, a look at where our planet may go next. 6. The Future Earth, where our planet may go. Next tonight, we reach the final chapter of our journey, a journey that has taken us across 4.5 billion years. We have travelled beyond the birth of Earth to a world of fire and molten rock. We have watched oceans form. We have followed the first tiny organisms that quietly transformed the planet. We have witnessed ancient forests, forgotten creatures, and the giants that once ruled the land. We have followed the long path of evolution, from our earliest ancestors to a species capable of looking back through time, humanity. But Earth's story does not end here, because our planet is not finished changing. The earth beneath our feet may feel permanent. The mountains, the oceans, the continents, the sky above us. But everything is temporary. Everything is moving. Everything is becoming something else. Just as the earth of today would seem impossible to the creatures that lived hundreds of millions of years ago, the earth of the distant future will be a world we would barely recognize. The journey continues, deep beneath the surface. The slow movement of Earth's plates will continue. The continents will keep drifting, very slowly, almost invisibly, a few centimeters each year. But given enough time, those tiny movements become enormous. New mountains will rise, old mountains will disappear, oceans will open, oceans will close. The map of Earth will be rewritten again and again. The same forces that created our world will continue shaping it long after we are gone. Millions of years from now, future life forms may look upon a completely different planet. The forests we know may disappear. New ecosystems may replace them. New creatures may evolve. Some species alive today may survive. Others may become memories preserved only in fossils, because extinction has always been part of Earth's story. Almost every species that has ever existed has eventually disappeared. The dinosaurs, the trilobites, the giant reptiles of ancient seas. They were not failures. They were chapters, each one adding something to the story of life. And eventually, humanity itself will become part of that story. Perhaps we will continue. Perhaps we will change. Perhaps we will explore beyond Earth. Perhaps our descendants will live among the stars. Or perhaps, like countless species before us, we will one day become another layer in Earth's ancient history, a memory written into the rocks. But beyond the future of life, there is an even greater story, the future of Earth itself. Because our planet's fate is connected to the star that gave it life, the sun. For billions of years, the sun has provided the energy that powers Earth's oceans, its climate, and almost every living thing. But stars change. They are born, they live, and eventually they transform. In roughly 5 billion years, the sun will begin changing dramatically. It will grow larger, brighter, hotter, eventually becoming a red giant star. A future sun unlike the calm yellow star we see today. The inner planets will face an unimaginable environment. Earth itself will become a very different world. The oceans that once covered the planet will eventually disappear. The atmosphere will change. The familiar blue world that carried billions of years of life will be transformed. But this is not a tragedy. It is simply nature. The same universe that created Earth will eventually create something new. Nothing truly disappears. It changes. The atoms that make mountains, the atoms that make oceans, the atoms that make our bodies, they continue traveling. They become part of new worlds, new stars, new possibilities. The story of Earth is part of a much larger story, a cosmic story, one that began billions of years before our planet existed and will continue billions of years after. And perhaps the most remarkable part is that for a brief moment, the universe created something capable of understanding it. A planet, life, consciousness, you. Every thought you have ever had, every memory, every dream exists because a chain of events stretching across billions of years happened exactly as it did. Ancient stars lived and died. Elements were created. Planets formed. Oceans appeared. Life began. Evolution continued. And eventually, you opened your eyes. You are not separate from Earth's history. You are the latest chapter of it. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the oxygen in every breath, all connected to a story older than imagination itself. A story that began with dust floating through darkness. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Earth can teach us. We are temporary, but we are also extraordinary. A human life may last only a moment compared with the age of a planet. But within that moment, we experience the universe. We watch sunsets. We listen to oceans. We look at the stars. And we ask questions. The same universe that created galaxies, created minds capable of wondering about them. So tonight, as you rest, remember the journey we have taken, from cosmic dust to a living world, from the first tiny cells to forests and oceans, from ancient creatures to humanity. 4.5 billion years of change, leading to this quiet moment. You are here, on a small planet, around an ordinary star, floating through an enormous universe, and somehow, after billions of years of cosmic history, you are able to experience it. The Earth will continue. The universe will continue. The story will continue. But for now, we can simply rest, knowing that we are part of something far older and far greater than ourselves. The universe beyond imagination. Tonight, as the world becomes quieter, as the lights around you slowly disappear, allow yourself to imagine something much larger than the room you are in, much larger than the planet beneath you, much larger than the tiny moment in time that we call now. Because above your head, hidden beyond the clouds, there is a universe so enormous, so strange, and so beautiful that even the greatest minds in history have struggled to truly comprehend it. For thousands of years, humans looked into the night sky and wondered, what are those lights? How far away are they? And what is waiting beyond them? Today, science has answered some of those questions, but every answer has revealed an even deeper mystery. So tonight, let yourself drift as we travel through some of the strangest discoveries humanity has ever made. The universe is about to become much stranger than you ever imagined. The universe is so large that we can never see all of it. Imagine standing on a beach at night, looking out across a completely calm ocean. You can see the water stretching away into the darkness, but eventually, your eyes reach a limit, the horizon. The universe is similar, not because it has an edge like a wall, but because light itself has a speed limit. The light from distant stars as galaxies needs time to travel. When you look at the moon, you are not seeing it exactly as it is now. You are seeing it as it was about 1 second ago. When you look at the sun, you are seeing it as it was about 8 minutes ago. And when scientists look at galaxies billions of light years away, they are looking billions of years into the past. The universe is not just a place, it is also a time machine. Every direction we look, we are looking into history. And the most incredible part is that the universe we can see may only be a small part of everything that exists. There may be regions of space so far away that their light has never reached us, meaning there are entire parts of reality that could exist forever beyond our ability to observe. Fact 2, there are more stars in the universe than grains of sand. On Earth, picture yourself holding a handful of sand, tiny pieces of ancient rock, each one shaped by millions of years of wind and water. Now imagine every beach, every desert, every coastline on Earth, every grain of sand you could ever see. Scientists estimate that the number of stars in the observable universe is greater than the number of grains of sand on all the beaches of Earth, a number so large that the human mind struggles to hold it. There are hundreds of billions of galaxies, and inside each galaxy, hundreds of billions of stars. Some stars are smaller than Earth. Some are millions of times larger than our sun. Some have planets orbiting them. Some may have worlds where conditions could allow life. And somewhere among all those countless stars, there's a possibility that another creature is looking back at the same sky, wondering the same question. Are we alone? The universe is not just big, it is almost beyond imagination. A day on Venus is longer than a year on Venus. Imagine waking up, looking outside your window, and discovering that the same morning sun had been rising for months. On Earth, a day feels simple. The planet turns once, the sun rises, the sun sets. But Venus is different. Venus spins incredibly slowly. One complete rotation takes about 243 Earth days. That means one day on Venus is longer than its entire year. Because Venus travels around the Sun in only about 225 Earth days, a person standing on Venus would experience something that feels impossible. They would have a birthday before their first full day had even ended. But Venus is not just strange because of time. It is one of the most hostile places in our solar system. Its atmosphere traps heat so efficiently that the surface temperature is hot enough to melt lead. The planet closest to our idea of a beautiful morning sky is actually a world of crushing pressure, extreme heat, and endless clouds. Sometimes, the most familiar things are hiding the greatest mysteries. A spoonful of neutron star material would weigh billions of tons. Now imagine something ordinary. A teaspoon, something sitting quietly in your kitchen drawer. Small, simple, almost weightless. Now imagine that spoon was filled with material from a neutron star. A star that once burned brightly before collapsing under its own gravity. When some giant stars die, their cores can collapse so violently that the atoms inside them are crushed. The empty space inside atoms disappears. Matter becomes packed together in a way that is almost impossible to imagine. A neutron star is the remains of a star compressed into a sphere roughly the size of a city. It contains more mass than our sun, but squeezed into a tiny area. A single teaspoon of this material would weigh billions of tons, more than mountains, more than cities. A piece of a star, small enough to hold, but heavy enough to completely change our understanding of matter. The universe creates places where the normal rules of life no longer seem to apply. The atoms in your body were created inside ancient stars. Before you were here, before the earth existed, before the sun was even born, the universe was already creating the ingredients that would eventually become you. Imagine traveling backwards through time, past cities, past oceans, past dinosaurs, past the formation of Earth itself. Eventually, you would reach a time when our solar system did not exist. Only clouds of gas and dust floating through darkness. But inside these clouds were atoms that had been created inside stars that lived and died billions of years earlier. The carbon in your cells, the oxygen you breathe, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood. Many of these elements were forged inside the hearts of ancient stars. Stars are not just lights in the sky. They are cosmic factories. They take simple elements and transform them into the ingredients of planets, oceans, and living creatures. In a very real scientific sense, you are made from the remains of stars that died long before Earth existed. The universe looked into darkness, created stars, destroyed them, and from those pieces, eventually created something capable of looking back. You. There are planets where it may rain glass, sideways. Imagine standing on another world, a planet where the sky is not blue, a planet where the weather is not rain or snow, but something far more extreme. Scientists have discovered planets with conditions unlike anything on Earth. One example is a planet called HD 189733b. It is a giant planet orbiting another star. From space, it looks beautiful. A deep blue world, almost like Earth, but the reality is terrifying. The blue color comes from silicate particles, the same basic material found in glass, and because of the incredible winds on this planet, traveling thousands of kilometers per hour, scientists believe glass particles may be blown sideways through the atmosphere. Imagine looking into the distance, watching a blue sky, and then realizing the beautiful color above you represents a world where storms of glass may be racing across the planet. The universe creates beauty in places where life may never exist. The sun is losing millions of tons of mass every second, every morning. The sun rises, a familiar sight, a comforting one. The source of almost all energy that powers life on Earth. But the sun is not permanent. It is slowly changing. Every second, nuclear reactions inside the sun convert hydrogen into helium. A small amount of mass is transformed into energy. That energy travels outward, across millions of kilometers, and eventually reaches Earth as sunlight. The amount of mass the sun loses every second is enormous. Millions of tons disappear, converted into pure energy. But because the sun is so incredibly massive, it can continue doing this for billions of years. The star above us is not a giant ball of fire. It is a vast nuclear engine, quietly transforming itself, creating the energy that allows forests to grow, oceans to move, and life to exist. One day, even the sun will change. But tonight, it continues burning, as it has for more than 4 billion years. There are planets that orbit 2 stars. Imagine waking up on a planet, walking outside, and seeing not one sun in the sky, but 2. 2 stars rising together. 2 sources of light. 2 enormous cosmic furnaces hanging above your world. This is not science fiction. Some planets exist in systems with 2 stars. These are called circumbinary planets. The famous fictional planet Tatooine from Star Wars showed a world with twin suns. But nature created the idea first. The gravity of 2 stars creates a strange dance. The planet travels around both stars, while the stars themselves orbit each other. A sunset on such a world would be unlike anything humans have ever experienced. 2 stars disappearing below the horizon, casting different colors across an alien landscape. The universe has created countless worlds, and some of them may have skies that look like dreams. The moon is slowly moving away from Earth. Look up at the moon. It has been our companion for billions of years. It controls the tides. It lights our nights. It has watched every human civilization rise and fall. But the moon is slowly leaving us. Very slowly. Every year, the moon moves a few centimeters farther away from Earth. That may sound tiny, almost meaningless, but over millions and millions of years, the distance grows. The reason is connected to Earth's oceans and gravity. The moon pulls on our planet. The oceans respond. This interaction slowly transfers energy, pushing the moon outward. Long ago, the moon was much closer. Ancient Earth would have seen a larger moon in the sky, and far into the future, the moon will appear smaller than it does today. The sky above us is not frozen. The universe is always moving. Even the things that feel permanent are slowly changing. There may be more trees on Earth and stars in the Milky Way. When we imagine enormous numbers, we often think about space, billions of stars, millions of galaxies. But sometimes Earth surprises us. Scientists estimate there are around trillions of trees across our planet. The Milky Way galaxy contains hundreds of billions of stars, meaning that the number of trees on Earth may actually exceed the number of stars in our own galaxy. Think about that. Every forest, every woodland, every hidden tree growing in a remote place, all of them together creating a living world that by sheer number can rival the stars above us. Earth is not just a small rock floating in space. It is a planet filled with complexity, a world where life has spent billions of years creating beauty. A forest is not empty. A single tree is not simple. Every living thing is part of a story that began long before humans arrived. Black holes are not cosmic vacuums. When many people imagine a black hole, they picture an enormous cosmic vacuum cleaner, something that sucks everything nearby into darkness. But the reality is stranger. A black hole is an object with gravity so powerful that beyond a certain point, nothing can escape. Not even light. But if our sun was somehow replaced by a black hole with the exact same mass, Earth would not instantly be pulled in. We would continue orbiting. The difference is that we would lose the sunlight that keeps our planet alive. Black holes are not holes in space. They are regions where matter has been compressed to an extreme state, a place where gravity bends space and time itself. They're some of the most mysterious objects in existence, invisible, silent, yet powerful enough to reshape the universe around them. Time moves differently depending on where you are in the universe. Now imagine two clocks, both perfectly identical, both starting at the exact same moment. One is placed on Earth. The other is taken into space, close to a massive object like a black hole. At first, you might expect them to tick at the same speed, but according to science, they would not. Time itself is not fixed. It bends, it stretches, it changes depending on gravity and speed. Near stronger gravity, time moves more slowly. So if you are near a black hole, even for a short moment, you could return to find that years have passed elsewhere in the universe. Not because time was lost, but because time itself flowed differently for you. This means that somewhere in the universe, there are regions where time is moving slightly faster, and others where it is moving slower. Reality is not a single universal clock. It is more like a fabric, stretching and bending across space, and we are all moving through it at slightly different speeds without ever noticing. There are stars that have already died, but we can still see them. Imagine looking at a lighthouse in the distance. Its light shines across the ocean. But what if the lighthouse had already been destroyed, and yet its light was still traveling toward you? That is what happens in space. Light takes time to travel. So when we look at distant stars, we are not seeing them as they are right now. We are seeing them as they were in the past. Some stars we observe may have already exploded. Some may no longer exist at all, but their light is still on its journey across the universe and has not yet reached us. In a very real sense, astronomy is the study of history written in light. Every star in the sky is a message from the past, arriving slowly across unimaginable distances. When you look upward at night, you are not just seeing the present universe, you are seeing echoes of what once was. There are places in space where space itself is expanding, faster than light can travel now. Imagine trying to walk forward, but the ground beneath you is stretching faster than you can move. No matter how fast you walk, the distance keeps increasing. This is what is happening to the universe itself. Space is expanding. Not just galaxies moving through space, but space itself stretching. And in some regions, this expansion is so fast that galaxies are moving away from us faster than light can travel toward them. This does not break the laws of physics, because nothing is moving through space faster than light. Instead, space itself is expanding between objects. This means there are galaxies that will forever drift beyond our reach. No spacecraft will ever reach them. No signal will ever return from them. They are slowly disappearing from our observable universe, not by moving away, but by being carried away by the expansion of reality itself. The universe is not static. It is stretching, quietly, endlessly, into something we are still trying to understand. Some planets may be entirely made of diamond. Imagine a world where the ground beneath your feet is not rock, not soil, not metal, but diamond. A planet so rich in carbon and subjected to extreme pressure that entire worlds could form crystalline structures. Scientists have discovered evidence that such planets may exist, not like Earth, not like anything in our solar system, but worlds where pressure and heat transform matter into forms we only recognize as precious stones. On such a planet, mountains might sparkle, oceans might not exist, and the entire landscape could shimmer under the light of its star. But even on a diamond world, beauty does not mean habitability. These are environments shaped by extreme conditions. Worlds that remind us that nature does not follow human ideas of value or beauty. It simply creates what is possible. If you fell into a black hole, you might appear frozen in time. Now, imagine watching someone fall toward a black hole from a safe distance. As they move closer, something strange would happen. From your perspective, they would begin to slow down. Their movements would become more and more stretched. Their light would shift and fade, and eventually, they would appear to stop completely, frozen. Not because they actually stopped, but because the intense gravity is warping time and light around them. To an outside observer, they would seem suspended at the edge of the black hole forever. But from their own perspective, they would continue falling. This strange difference shows how reality depends on perspective. Two observers looking at the same event could experience completely different versions of time. The universe does not give a single answer to what is happening. It gives many. The universe has a cosmic background glow. From its beginning, if you tune a television to static, you might see faint noise of the screen, a leftover signal, something without a clear source. The universe has something similar. All around us, there is a faint background radiation, a whisper of energy filling space in every direction. This is called the cosmic microwave background. It is the leftover heat from the early universe, when everything was once incredibly hot and dense. Over billions of years, the universe expanded, and this radiation cooled, stretching into a faint glow that still exists today. It is one of the strongest pieces of evidence for the Big Bang, a kind of ancient light, still traveling through space, telling the story of how everything began. Even now, you are surrounded by echoes of the universe's earliest moments. Some galaxies are moving so fast, they will never be seen again. Picture galaxies as distant cities of stars, each one glowing faintly in the dark. But the universe is expanding, and some of those galaxies are moving away from us so quickly that their light will never reach us again. Not in 1,000,000 years, not in 1,000,000,000, forever. They're crossing a boundary beyond which the universe becomes unreachable. From our perspective, they slowly fade, not because they disappear, but because their light can no longer keep up with the expansion of space. This means the observable universe is shrinking in terms of what we can access in the far future. Entire galaxies forever lost to distance, silent witnesses to a universe growing larger than our ability to observe it. We are living inside a universe that is still evolving. It is easy to think of the universe as something fixed, something complete. But it is not. It is changing. Stars are being born. Others are dying. Galaxies are colliding. Space is expanding. Time is flowing. And even now, as you read this, the universe is not the same as it was a moment ago. It is still unfolding, still becoming, still writing its story across billions of years. And we are here, briefly, to witness it, to wonder about it, and to be part of it. There is a planet where the sky may never truly be dark. Imagine a world where night never fully arrives. A planet locked so close to its star that one side always faces eternal daylight, while the other remains in permanent darkness. On the boundary between them, there may be a thin region where winds race endlessly, trying to balance extreme heat and freezing cold, a place where the concept of day and night slowly disappears and is replaced by something far more alien, a permanent twilight world where the sky never truly settles. The Milky Way will eventually collide with another galaxy. Imagine looking up at the night sky and realizing that the galaxy we live in is not still. It is moving. And one day, in about 4 billion years, the Milky Way will collide with the Andromeda Galaxy, two vast cities of stars, slowly drifting toward each other across unimaginable distance. But because space is so empty, most stars will not collide directly. Instead, they will pass through and around each other, forming a completely new galaxy over time. A slow cosmic merger, reshaping everything we know in the far future. Space is completely silent, because there is no medium for sound. Imagine shouting in space. Not even a whisper would travel, because sound needs air, or water, or something to carry its vibration. Space has almost nothing. No atmosphere, no medium, just near-perfect vacuum. This means even the most powerful explosions of the universe, supernovae, would happen in total silence if you were nearby. The universe is not loud, it is silent beyond human understanding. Some light has been traveling for nearly the entire age of the universe. When we observe the most distant galaxies, we are looking almost all the way back to the beginning of time. Some light has traveled for over 13 billion years, just to reach us. That means the image arriving in your eyes may have started its journey before Earth even existed. You are not just looking at space, you are looking across time itself, touching the ancient memory of the universe, the hidden story of life itself. Every living human is carrying an ancient story inside their body. Imagine zooming in, smaller than skin, smaller than cells, smaller than anything you can see. Inside you, there is something so small it cannot be seen with the naked eye. DNA. A code written not in ink, but in molecules. And inside that code is a record of billions of years of survival. Every ancestor who lived and survived and passed life forward is part of the instructions that built you, not as memories, but as biological information. A silent story written into your existence. Life on Earth has existed for over 3 billion years. Imagine Earth as a young world. No cities, no animals, no trees, only oceans and volcanic rock. But even in that ancient darkness, life had already begun. Single microscopic organisms floating in ancient seas, slowly changing over unimaginable time. Life did not appear suddenly. It unfolded, patiently, continuously, until eventually it became everything we see today. Some organisms have survived mass extinctions that erased most life. Picture Earth being reset. Not once, but multiple times. Asteroids, volcanic eruptions, climate collapses, events so extreme that most species disappeared. And yet, life continued. Some organisms survived when almost everything else vanished. Tiny survivors, holding the thread of existence together, long enough for life to begin again. The world has almost ended before, more than once, and yet it always continued. Humans share a large portion of their DNA with other life forms. Now imagine looking into the eyes of another creature, a cat, a bird, even something as small as a fruit fly, and realizing at a molecular level you are not entirely separate from them. Life is not divided as sharply as it appears. Instead, it branches like a vast tree, every branch sharing a common root, different forms, same origin, different shapes, same language written in DNA. Evolution does not aim for perfection, only survival. Imagine a sculptor, but one who never sees the final statue, only adjusts it slightly over millions of years, based on what works and what does not. That is evolution. It does not plan, it does not design, it responds. Small changes that help survival remain, small changes that do not fade away. Over time, entire species emerge, not perfectly engineered, but perfectly adapted enough to continue. Some species on Earth have changed very little for millions of years. Now imagine something so successful that it barely needs to change. Some species have remained almost the same for millions of years, not because they stopped evolving, but because their form already works extremely well in their environment. They are like living windows into the distant past, still here, still surviving, still quietly continuing their ancient existence. Your body replaces almost every cell over time. Now imagine yourself not as a fixed object, but as something constantly rebuilding. Every moment, cells die and new ones are created. Your skin, your blood, your organs are slowly renewing themselves. Over time, much of your physical body is replaced, yet somehow you remain you, a continuous identity, built from changing material. Ancient life once survived without oxygen. Now picture Earth before oxygen filled the atmosphere. A world that would feel completely uninhabitable to us today. And yet, life existed. Early organisms survived in conditions that would be deadly to most modern life. Life adapts not just to comfort, but to whatever conditions exist. It does not wait for perfect environments. It continues. wherever it can. All life on Earth is connected through a shared evolutionary history. Imagine tracing your family tree backwards, not just to parents or grandparents, but millions of generations. Eventually, you would not just reach humans, you would reach all life. At the deepest level, every organism on Earth is part of the same unfolding story, a single continuous chain, stretching back to the earliest forms of life. Different branches, same beginning. Mutations in DNA are often random yet shape all life. Now imagine writing a book, but occasionally a single letter changes on its own. Most of the time it means nothing. Sometimes it breaks the sentence, and sometimes, very rarely, it creates something new. That is mutation. Random changes in DNA. Most do not matter. Some disappear, but over immense time, they become the source of all biological innovation. Everything new in life began as chance. The earliest life forms were invisible to the naked eye. Now imagine Earth with no visible life at all. No animals, no forests, no movement you could see. And yet, life existed, but only at a microscopic scale. Tiny organisms drifting in oceans, shaping the chemistry of the planet without being seen. Life does not need to be large to be powerful. Sometimes, the smallest beginnings change everything. Some animals can survive being frozen, solid. Imagine a winter so extreme that your entire body freezes. Not just cold skin, but ice forming inside your tissues. And yet, some creatures on Earth can survive this. Certain frogs, insects, and tiny organisms have evolved a way to slow down or temporarily suspend their biological activity during extreme cold. Their hearts stop, their breathing stops, even their blood stops moving. And then, when temperatures rise again, life resumes, as if nothing had ever happened. It is not resurrection, but a form of survival so extreme it feels impossible. Octopuses have a nervous system that is partly distributed through their arms. Now imagine having thoughts, not just in your head, but spread throughout your body. Octopuses are like this in a way. A large portion of their neurons are not in their central brain, but in their arms. Each arm can process information, respond, and even act semi-independently. It is as if each limb has its own awareness, working together as part of one creature. A form of intelligence that is completely different from ours. Some trees communicate through underground networks. Now picture a forest, quiet, still. But beneath the soil, something extraordinary is happening. Trees are not completely isolated. Their roots are connected through vast underground fungal networks. These networks allow them to exchange nutrients and even signals. If one tree is under stress, others nearby can respond in subtle ways. A forest is not just a collection of individual trees. It is a connected system. A living network that behaves almost like a single organism. Some animals can regrow entire body parts. Imagine losing a limb, and slowly, over time, it grows back. Certain species on Earth can regenerate parts of their bodies. Some can regrow limbs, others can repair organs, and a few can even rebuild large sections of themselves if damaged. This ability shows that life is far more flexible than it appears. What seems permanent in one species is reversible in another. Bees can recognize human faces. Now imagine being seen, not just as shapes or movement, but as a recognizable face. Bees, despite their tiny brains, can learn to recognize patterns and even distinguish human faces under certain conditions. A reminder that intelligence does not depend on size alone. Even the smallest creatures can perceive the world in ways we are only beginning to understand. Some animals experience time differently. Imagine living in a world where everything moves slowly. So slowly that you can react in time to events that will feel instant to us. For some animals, this is reality. Their perception of time is faster than ours. Flies, for example, can detect and react to movement far quicker than humans. To them, our movements might appear slow and predictable. Time is not experienced equally across life. It depends on the mind perceiving it. Coral reefs are made of tiny living creatures, working together. Now imagine a vast underwater city, not built by hands, but by tiny organisms, working together over thousands of years. Coral reefs are made by countless microscopic animals called polyps. Each one contributes a tiny structure. And over time, these structures build massive ecosystems. Reefs become homes for thousands of species, entire underwater worlds, constructed by life itself. Some birds can navigate using the Earth's magnetic field. Now imagine traveling without maps, without landmarks, without roads, and yet always knowing where you are. Certain birds can sense Earth's magnetic field. This invisible structure surrounding the planet helps them navigate across thousands of kilometers during migration. They are guided by something we cannot see, a natural compass built into life itself. Some species can survive in conditions that would destroy most life. Now imagine environments of extreme heat, pressure, radiation, or complete isolation. And yet, some organisms survive there. Not comfortably, but successfully. Life is not fragile in the way we often assume. It is adaptable, resilient, able to exist in places that seem completely uninhabitable. Every ecosystem is connected in ways we are still discovering. Now imagine Earth not as separate environments, but as one interconnected system. Forests affect weather, oceans influence climate, animals shape landscapes, and even microscopic organisms play a role in global cycles. Nothing exists in complete isolation. Every part of life is linked, in ways science is still uncovering. Some animals can pause their entire life cycle for years. Imagine pressing pause on life itself. Not sleep, not rest, but a complete biological suspension. Certain organisms can enter a state where nearly all activity stops. Metabolism slows to almost nothing. Time, for them, becomes irrelevant. And then, when conditions improve, they continue, as if the interruption never happened. Life, simply waiting for the right moment to begin again. The human body contains more microbial cells than human cells. Imagine yourself not as one being, but as a vast ecosystem. Inside and on your body, trillions of microscopic organisms live. Many of them are essential for digestion, immunity, and health. In fact, the number of microbial cells in and on the human body may be comparable to, or even exceed, the number of human cells. You are not a single entity in the stricter sense, but a living collaboration between many forms of life, a walking ecosystem, quietly working together. Some species communicate using light instead of sound or touch. Now imagine the darkness of the deep ocean. No sunlight, no familiar colors, only pressure and silence. And yet, life still communicates. Some organisms produce their own light through bioluminescence, flashes, pulses, signals in the dark, messages written in illumination rather than sound, a language of living light in the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. Evolution can produce similar solutions in completely unrelated species. Now imagine two completely different worlds, developing similar answers to the same problems. This happens in nature. Different species with no direct connection can evolve similar traits independently. Wings, eyes, streamlined bodies, not copied, but developed separately. Because the challenges of survival often lead life towards similar solutions, as if nature itself explores possibilities, and sometimes arrives at the same answer more than once. Some bacteria can survive in space-like conditions. Now imagine removing all protection, no air, no pressure, extreme radiation, conditions like outer space. And yet, some bacteria can survive environments that approach these extremes. Not comfortably, but long enough to endure. Life, in its simplest form, is more resilient than we often imagine, able to persist even where survival seems impossible. Your gut health can influence your brain activity. Now imagine a conversation happening inside you, not spoken, but chemical. The bacteria in your gut can produce substances that interact with your nervous system. These signals can influence mood, behavior, and even how you think. The mind is not isolated from the body. It is part of a wider biological system, a network of connections you cannot see, but constantly feel. Some plants can sense their environment and respond. Now imagine something that does not have a brain, yet still reacts to the world around it. Plants can respond to light, gravity, touch, and even damage. They grow towards sunlight. They adjust to their environment. They respond slowly but deliberately in ways that help them survive. Life does not always need a nervous system to interact with reality. There are ecosystems hidden beneath ice that have never seen sunlight. Now picture a frozen world, thick layers of ice covering everything, and beneath that ice, life still exists. In hidden pockets of water, organisms survive without sunlight. Their energy comes from chemical processes instead of photosynthesis. Entire ecosystems, completely disconnected from the surface world, yet still alive. Some animals can regenerate their entire bodies from small fragments. Now imagine breaking something apart and it rebuilding itself completely. Certain organisms can regenerate large parts of their bodies from small sections. Not repair, but full reconstruction. As if the instructions for the whole organism exist in every part. Life, in these cases, is not fragile structure, but distributed potential. Life on Earth has continuously changed the planet itself. Now imagine Earth not as a passive world, but as something shaped by life. Oxygen in the atmosphere, soil formation, climate regulation, oceans influenced by biology. Life does not simply exist on Earth, it transforms it, a planet and its inhabitants, constantly shaping each other over billions of years. Some animals can switch between male and female during their lifetime. Now imagine identity not being fixed, but flexible. In certain species, biology allows individuals to change sex depending on environmental conditions or social structure. This is not rarity in nature, but a survival strategy, a way for life to adapt when circumstances shift. It reminds us that even the most fundamental categories in nature are sometimes more fluid than we assume. The deep ocean contains creatures we have never observed alive. Now imagine a world deeper than sunlight can reach. Pressure so intense it crushes most known life. And yet, life continues there. Some deep sea creatures are known only from rare encounters or traces. meaning there may be species living in the oceans today that humanity has never directly observed. A vast, hidden world, still largely unknown. Some animals can hear through their skin or bones. Now imagine sensing the world without ears. Some animals detect vibrations through their bodies instead of traditional hearing. Sound becomes something physical, felt rather than heard. A ripple through bone, a vibration through tissue. A reminder that perception does not have to follow human design. Certain species can survive complete dehydration. Now imagine all water leaving your body, every cell shrinking, every process slowing. And yet, some organisms can survive extreme dehydration. They essentially enter a dormant state until water returns. Life reduced to a near static form, waiting patiently for conditions to improve. A biological pause button. The human brain can reconstruct reality, even with missing information. Now imagine seeing the world, but not all of it is actually being directly observed. Your brain fills in gaps constantly. Blind spots, missing data, unclear signals, and yet your experience feels complete. Reality, as you perceive it, is partly constructed. A continuous interpretation, not a direct recording. Some ecosystems depend entirely on chemicals from the Earth's core. Now imagine life that does not depend on sunlight at all. Deep beneath the surface, near hydrothermal vents. Organisms survive using chemicals emerging from Earth itself. Heat and minerals become energy sources. Life built on the planet's internal processes, rather than the sun above. A hidden origin of survival. There are species that can clone themselves, without partners. Now imagine reproduction without interaction. Some organisms can reproduce independently, creating genetically similar copies of themselves. Life continuing without traditional pairing, a self-sustaining cycle of existence. A reminder that nature explores many ways to persist. Some animals can detect electric fields. Now imagine sensing something invisible, not light, not sound, but electricity. Certain aquatic species can detect electrical signals produced by other organisms, a hidden layer of perception beneath water, where movement and life create subtle electrical patterns, a sense beyond human experience. Life has persisted through multiple global catastrophes. Now imagine Earth undergoing repeated resets, ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, moments where most life disappears. And yet, life continues, always adapting, always returning, a continuity stretching across unimaginable time. Some species have not changed, noticeably, for hundreds of millions of years. Now imagine a living form that remains almost unchanged across vast stretches of time, not because it is static, but because it is already well suited to its environment. A living snapshot of ancient Earth, still existing today. A connection between present and deep past. Human perception of time changes depending on attention and experience. Now imagine time not as fixed, but flexible. When focused deeply, time can feel slower. When distracted, it can feel like it disappears. Your experience of time is not constant. It is shaped by your mind, a personal rhythm within reality. Every ecosystem relies on invisible microorganisms to function. Now imagine the foundation of life not being large animals or plants, but microscopic organisms. They cycle nutrients, break down matter, sustain food chains. Without them, larger life would collapse. Invisible systems supporting everything visible. Some animals can survive radiation levels that would kill most life. Now imagine environments filled with energy that destroys most biological structures. And yet, some organisms survive, not by avoiding damage entirely, but by repairing it efficiently. Life, in its simplest forms, can endure extreme conditions far beyond human limits. The history of life is mostly invisible. In scale and time now, imagine compressing Earth's entire biological history into a single line. Most of that line would be microscopic life, simple organisms, slow changes. Only a small portion represents complex life like animals and humans. The majority of life's history is hidden from sight, but essential to everything that followed. Life continues to adapt even. In modern human environments now, imagine nature not stopping, but continuing alongside civilization. Organisms adapting to cities, to light, to noise, to artificial environments. Life is still evolving, even in the presence of humans, a quiet continuation of an ancient process. Some organisms can enter a state where they appear completely lifeless. Now imagine something that seems dead, but is not. Certain life forms can slow their activity so drastically that they appear inactive. No movement, no visible signs of life. And yet, they are still alive beneath that stillness, waiting for the right conditions to return. A threshold between life and dormancy so deep it feels almost unreal. Life on Earth has survived conditions that would be fatal to almost all known species. Now imagine Earth passing through extremes, ice covering oceans, atmospheres changing, temperatures shifting dramatically over time. And yet, life continues. Not the same forms always, but life itself remains, constantly adapting to survive whatever conditions emerge, a persistent thread running through every change. Some animals can detect movement through pressure, changes in water or air. Now imagine sensing without sight, without sound, only through subtle shifts in pressure. Certain animals can detect movement in their environment through tiny changes in surrounding fluid or air, a hidden sensory system, allowing them to perceive things humans cannot directly feel. The world, in this sense, is far more detailed than it appears. Many species depend on seasonal changes that are driven by Earth's tilt. Now imagine a planet slowly leaning through space. That tilt creates seasons: winter, spring, summer, autumn, and entire ecosystems are built around this rhythm. Migration, reproduction, growth. Life is deeply connected to the planet's orientation in space, in ways most people never consciously notice. Some microorganisms can live in acidic or toxic environments. Now imagine environments that would destroy most life instantly. Highly acidic water, extreme chemical conditions. And yet, some microorganisms survive there, not by resisting change, but by adapting to it. Life finds ways to exist even in places that seem fundamentally hostile. The human body is constantly repairing damage without conscious awareness. Now imagine your body working silently, repairing tissues, fighting infection, replacing damaged cells, all without your awareness. A continuous process of maintenance happening every moment of your life. You are not a static structure, but a constantly self-renewing system. Some species can pause their metabolism, almost completely. Now imagine slowing life down to near stillness. Heart rate nearly stopping. Energy usage reduced to minimal levels. Time passing externally, while internally almost nothing changes. A state where survival is preserved by almost stopping activity entirely. A biological suspension of motion. Ecosystems can recover. after catastrophic events over extremely long time periods. Now imagine destruction on a planetary scale, extinctions, climate shifts, volcanic activity, and yet, over time, life returns. Not immediately, but gradually. New species emerge, new balances form, the system rebuilds itself across millions of years. Some animals can navigate vast distances without ever being taught. Now imagine being born with direction already built into you. Certain species migrate across continents or oceans without maps or instruction. They rely on instinctual navigation systems shaped by evolution, a natural guidance system embedded in biology itself. Life exists in places once thought completely uninhabitable. Now imagine discovering life where none was expected. Deep underground, in extreme cold, in high-pressure environments, places once thought sterile, turn out to contain organisms adapted to survive there. Life consistently expands the boundaries of where it can exist. Some organisms can enter dormancy for extremely long periods. Now imagine time passing, years, decades, centuries, and yet certain life forms can remain in a dormant state for incredibly long periods, waiting, preserved, until conditions allow activity again. Life stretched across time in unexpected ways. The study of evolution shows that change is constant, even if invisible. Now imagine a world that appears stable, but beneath that stability, small changes accumulate, mutations, adaptations, selection. Over long periods, these changes shape entirely new forms of life. Transformation is always happening, even when it is not immediately visible. Some species use color, not only for survival, but for communication. Now imagine color as language, bright patterns, shifts in appearance, signals sent to others of the same species. Color becomes more than decoration. It becomes information, a visual system of communication built into biology. Life has developed in parallel across different environments. Now imagine separate environments producing similar outcomes, different ecosystems, yet similar solutions emerging independently. Nature often converges on effective designs, not through planning, but through repeated experimentation over time. Even the simplest forms of life follow complex biological rules. Now imagine something so small it cannot be seen individually. And yet, even the simplest organisms follow structured processes: growth, reproduction, response to environment. Life, at every scale, follows patterns that sustain it. Some organisms can repair their entire genetic code after damage. Now imagine a blueprint, a perfect instruction manual for building life. Now imagine that blueprint being damaged, torn, and slowly rebuilt. Some organisms can repair severe damage to their genetic material, fixing errors that would normally end life in other species. A quiet biological recovery happening at the smallest possible scale. Life often begins in conditions that appear completely unstable. Now imagine early Earth, volcanoes erupting, oceans forming, atmosphere changing constantly. And yet, life begins in environments that seem chaotic by modern standards. Not in calm perfection, but in instability. From turbulence emerges order. Some animals can sense infrared heat. Now imagine seeing heat itself, not as warmth on your skin, but as information. Certain species can detect infrared radiation. They can sense body heat, movement, and living presence, even in darkness. A hidden layer of perception surrounding the world. Many life forms rely on symbiotic relationships to survive now. Imagine survival not as independence, but cooperation. Many organisms depend entirely on other species to live. nutrient exchange, protection, energy sharing. Life is often not solitary, but deeply interconnected, a network of mutual dependence spanning ecosystems. Some plants can communicate chemical warning signals. Now imagine a plant being harmed, and in response, releasing chemical signals into the air. Nearby plants detect these signals and begin preparing their own defenses. A silent warning system, spreading through living networks without sound or sight. Certain microorganisms can survive extreme pressure. Deep underground, now imagine miles beneath the Earth's surface. No sunlight, extreme pressure, limited resources. And yet, life persists. Microorganisms adapted to survive in conditions once thought impossible for biology. Life exists far deeper than we once imagined. Evolution can produce complex behavior without conscious thought. Now imagine behavior emerging without planning. Instincts shaped over millions of years. Responses that appear intelligent, but arise from natural selection. Complex patterns can form without awareness. A reminder that intelligence is not always required for complexity. Some species can survive in complete darkness for entire lifetimes. Now imagine never seeing light. Not for a day, not for years, but for an entire lifetime. Certain organisms live in environments with no sunlight at all. Their biology adapts completely to darkness. A world without vision, yet still full of life. The human body contains systems that operate without conscious control. Now imagine processes happening inside you constantly. Heartbeat, digestion, breathing regulation, all functioning automatically. Your body is a collection of systems working silently, without needing conscious direction. A hidden coordination of life processes. Life has developed multiple independent solutions to similar problems. Now imagine different paths leading to similar results. Eyes evolved in different forms across species. Flight appears in unrelated animals. Nature repeatedly explores similar solutions, not through design, but through repeated adaptation. Some species can detect ultraviolet light, invisible to humans. Imagine a world with colors beyond human perception. Certain animals can see ultraviolet light. Patterns invisible to us become visible to them. The world is richer in information than human senses reveal. Ecosystems can collapse and rebuild over geological time. Now imagine a forest disappearing, an ecosystem collapsing, and over time, slowly returning. Not instantly, but through gradual regeneration across centuries and millennia. Life is not fixed. It rebuilds. Some organisms can survive near total lack of oxygen. Now imagine almost no air available, very little oxygen, and yet some life forms continue to function, adapting metabolism to extreme conditions. Life persists even when essential resources are nearly absent. Biological systems are constantly processing information. Now imagine life as computation. Cells interpreting signals, systems responding to changes, DNA encoding instructions. Biology is not static matter, but continuous information processing at every level. Life on Earth is still only a small part of what the universe could contain. Now imagine zooming out, far beyond Earth, beyond the solar system, beyond the galaxy. Life here is the only example we currently know, but the universe is vast beyond comprehension. Countless worlds may exist, countless possibilities, and we are only beginning to understand our place within it. And still, the story continues, into the brain, into consciousness, into the deepest questions of existence itself. The human mind. Reality inside your head. Everything you experience is constructed by your brain. Now imagine this. You are not actually seeing reality directly. What you see, what you hear, what you feel is all being constructed inside your brain. Your eyes do not see objects. They receive light. Your brain interprets it and creates your experience of the world. In a very real sense, you are not living inside reality. You are living inside a model of reality, a continuous simulation created by your mind. Your brain fills in gaps without you. Noticing now. Imagine looking at the world, but parts of it are missing. Blind spots exist in your vision. Gaps in information appear constantly. And yet, you never notice, because your brain fills in missing details automatically. It predicts what should be there and constructs a seamless experience. What you see is not perfect input, but perfect interpretation. Memories are not perfect recordings. Now, imagine replaying a video. Exact, unchanged, reliable. Now compare that to memory. When you remember something, your brain does not replay it like a recording. It rebuilds it. Each time you recall a memory, it can subtly change, shift, fade, or become altered by new experiences. Memory is not storage. It is reconstruction. Your brain uses more energy than any other organ. Relative to its size, now imagine a small organ, quietly consuming vast amounts of energy. The human brain may represent a small portion of body weight, but it uses a large proportion of the body's energy. Constantly active, even at rest, processing information, maintaining awareness, building reality, a silent engine of perception. Your sense of self is created from many separate processes. Now imagine the idea of you, not as a single thing, but as a combination of systems. Memory, emotion, perception, thought, all working together to create the feeling of identity. There is no single point in the brain where you exist. Instead, you are the result of many processes working in harmony. A constructed sense of self. The brain predicts reality before it happens. Now imagine your brain looking to the future, not in a mystical way, but through prediction. Your brain constantly anticipates what will happen next. It prepares reactions before events fully occur. This is why you can catch objects, react to movement, and navigate the world smoothly. You are always slightly ahead of the present moment, living in a predicted version of reality. Dreams are generated entirely by the brain. Now imagine a world that feels real, but does not exist. During sleep, the brain creates entire environments, people, sounds, emotions, events, all generated internally. Dreams are not external experiences, but internal simulations created by the mind, a reality built from memory and imagination. Attention filters. Most of reality out now. Imagine standing in a crowded place. So much information exists around you. Sounds, movement, light. But you only notice a fraction of it. Your attention acts like a filter, selecting what matters and ignoring the rest. Without this filter, reality would be overwhelming. The brain can create illusions that feel completely real. Now, imagine seeing something that is not actually there. Optical illusions reveal how perception can be tricked. The brain prioritizes patterns and expectations, sometimes over accuracy. This shows that what feels real is not always a direct reflection of the external world. Emotional experience shapes perception of time now. Imagine time slowing down or speeding up. When emotions are intense, time can feel different. Fear can make moments feel longer. pleasure can make them feel shorter. Time is not only measured externally, it is also experienced internally. The brain constantly removes information you do not need. Now imagine your mind as a processor of infinite data, but instead of showing everything, it removes unnecessary detail. You do not perceive every micro change in your environment. Instead, you perceive a simplified version, a usable version, a stable version of reality. Conscious awareness is only a small part of brain activity. Now imagine a vast system working beneath awareness. Most brain activity is unconscious. Only a small portion becomes conscious experience. The part you feel as yourself is only the surface of a much larger system operating beneath it. Your brain connects sensory input into a single experience. Now imagine separate streams of information: sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, all arriving separately, and yet you experience them as one unified reality. The brain binds these signals together, creating a single coherent experience of the world. The mind is always interpreting, never just observing. Now imagine that nothing you experience is raw. Everything is interpreted. Your brain assigns meaning to signals constantly. You are never just observing reality. You are interpreting it at every moment. Consciousness remains one of the greatest scientific mysteries. Now imagine the most familiar thing to you, your own awareness. Even today, science does not fully understand how subjective experience arises from physical processes. We can measure brain activity. We can observe patterns. But why it feels like something to be you remains one of the deepest unanswered questions. And now we move deeper into time, into physics, into the structure of reality itself. The human mind, reality inside your head. You never experience the present moment, exactly as it happens now. Imagine trying to touch a moving object, but by the time you feel it, it has already changed. Your brain processes information with a slight delay, milliseconds, tiny fractions of time, but enough to mean that your conscious experience is always slightly behind reality. What you call now is actually a reconstructed moment from just before, a carefully assembled version of the immediate past. Your brain continuously edits your perception of the world now. Imagine a film being edited in real time, frames adjusted, details enhanced, unnecessary information removed. Your perception works in a similar way. Your brain edits raw sensory input before you ever become aware of it. What you experience is not unfiltered reality, but a curated version shaped for understanding. The brain can invent sensations that have no external source. Now imagine feeling something that is not physically happening. The brain can generate sensations internally. Pain, movement, presence, even when no external cause exists. This shows that experience does not always require external input. The mind can create reality-like sensations on its own. Some thoughts appear without any clear origin. Now imagine a thought arriving without warning, no obvious trigger, no conscious decision. Ideas often emerge spontaneously from unconscious processes. The brain works beneath awareness, combining memory, pattern, and prediction to produce thoughts that appear fully formed. Your brain is constantly simulating possible futures. Now imagine standing at every moment, with multiple invisible paths extending ahead of you. The brain constantly runs internal simulations. If I move here, what happens? If I speak, what response follows? You are always living inside a system that predicts outcomes before they occur. Even your sense of decision-making is constructed after the fact now. Imagine making a choice, but the decision was already forming before you became aware of it. Research suggests that brain activity related to decisions can begin before conscious awareness. Your mind then experiences the decision as if it was made at that moment. A feeling of control constructed after the process has already started. The brain can misinterpret external signals completely. Now imagine your senses receiving information, but interpreting it incorrectly. A shadow becomes a shape. A sound becomes a threat. A pattern becomes meaning. The brain prioritizes interpretation over accuracy, sometimes creating experiences that do not match reality. Consciousness feels unified, but is built from separate systems now. Imagine many small systems working independently. Vision processing, language understanding, emotional response, memory retrieval, all operating separately and yet producing one seamless experience. The feeling of unity is an emergent property, not a single source. The brain constantly compresses reality into usable information. Now imagine an overwhelming flood of detail. Every second, far more than you could ever consciously process. So the brain compresses it, simplifies it, removes excess detail. What remains is a manageable version of reality, not the full complexity. Your mind uses patterns from the past to understand the present. Now imagine seeing something new, but interpreting it using old experiences. The brain relies heavily on memory-based patterns. It compares current input to previous knowledge to decide what something is. You do not see things as they are. You see them as they resemble. The feeling of self is a constantly updated construction. Now imagine your identity not as fixed, but continuously rebuilt. Every moment, your brain updates your sense of who you are based on memory, emotion, environment, and ongoing experience. The you feel right now is a continuously updated model. The brain can generate entire internal worlds during imagination. Now imagine closing your eyes and seeing another place, not faintly, but vividly. The brain can construct entire environments internally, with detail, emotion, structure. Imagination is not passive. It is active world building inside the mind. Perception can be influenced by expectation. Now imagine expecting something and then seeing it more clearly because of that expectation. The brain does not simply receive data. It predicts what should be there. Expectation can shape perception itself, sometimes more strongly than raw sensory input. Emotional states can alter the way reality feels now. Imagine the same world, but experienced in different emotional states. Fear can make the world feel dangerous. Calm can make it feel distant. Joy can make it feel brighter. The external world remains the same, but internal experience changes dramatically. Conscious experience may be only one layer of a much deeper system. Now imagine awareness as a surface. Beneath it, layers of unconscious processing, memory, emotion, prediction, all operating continuously. Consciousness is not the whole system, but the part you become aware of, a thin layer above a vast hidden structure. And still, we have only scratched the surface. Next, we move into something even deeper. Time, reality, and the structure of existence itself. Time, reality, and the shape of existence. Time does not flow. The same for everyone. Now, imagine two people standing in the same universe. but not experiencing the same time. One remains on Earth, the other travels through space at high speed or near a massive gravitational field. When they reunite, their experiences of time no longer match. One may have aged slightly more or significantly more, depending on conditions. Time is not universal. It bends with motion and gravity, a structure that changes depending on where you are. Gravity can slow time itself. Now imagine standing near something unimaginably massive, not just feeling its pull, but feeling time itself change. Near stronger gravity, time moves more slowly. This is not perception, it is physical reality. Clocks near massive objects tick differently than those far away. Time is not separate from space, it is part of the same fabric, a fabric that can stretch and compress. You are always moving through time, even when you are still now. Imagine standing completely still. No movement, no travel, and yet you are still moving. Not through space, but through time. Every second, you travel forward into the next moment. Time is the one direction you cannot stop, a constant forward movement, whether you are aware of it or not. The past exists only as information. Now imagine the past, not as something gone, but as something recorded. Everything that has happened exists only as information carried forward, in memory, in light, in physical traces left behind. The past is not a place you can return to, only a record that still exists in fragments. When you look at distant space, you are looking into the past. Now imagine looking up at the night sky. The light you see from distant stars may have traveled for thousands or even millions of years, meaning you are not seeing those stars as they are now, but as they once were. The universe is a living archive. Every point of light is a moment in history. Some events in the universe have already happened, but their light has not reached us yet. Now imagine something happening right now in a distant galaxy, but the light carrying that event has not yet arrived here. So from our perspective, it has not happened yet. Reality, in this sense, is delayed. Different observers see different nows. The universe has no single present moment. Now imagine asking a simple question. What is happening right now in the universe? Physics suggests there is no single answer, because simultaneity depends on perspective. Different observers disagree on what counts as now, meaning the universe does not have one shared present, only many overlapping ones. Black holes can freeze time from an outside perspective. Now imagine watching something fall into a black hole. From far away, it appears to slow down, stretch, fade, and eventually seem to freeze at the edge. But from the falling perspective, time continues normally. Two realities existing at the same time, one frozen, one continuing. Space and time are interwoven into a single fabric. Now imagine space and time not as separate things, but as one structure. Space-time, a four-dimensional fabric that forms reality itself. Mass bends it, motion stretches it, gravity curves it. Everything that exists is moving through the structure, like patterns on a shifting surface. The universe is expanding, but not into anything. Now, imagine the universe growing larger, but not into empty space. There is no outside container. Space itself is expanding. Distances between galaxies increase, not because they are moving through space, but because space itself is stretching. Expansion is happening everywhere at once. Some galaxies are receding, so fast we will never see them again. Now imagine watching distant galaxies slowly fade, not because they vanish, but because space expands faster than their light can travel toward us. Eventually, their light will never reach Earth again. They are not disappearing. They are becoming unreachable. The observable universe has a horizon we can never cross. Now imagine standing at the edge of what can be seen. Beyond a certain distance, light has not had time to reach us. This boundary is called the observable universe. It is not a physical wall, but a limit defined by time and light. Beyond it, there may be far more universe, forever unseen. The universe may be much larger than what we can observe now. Imagine everything you can see: stars, galaxies, light. And then imagine that this is only a small portion of everything that exists. The true size of the universe may extend far beyond what light has reached, meaning what we call everything may only be a fraction of reality. Space itself can stretch faster than light without breaking physics. Now imagine 2 points in space moving apart. Faster than light could travel between them. This does not violate physics, because nothing is moving through space faster than light. Instead, space itself is expanding. The fabric between objects stretches, carrying them apart. The universe has been expanding since its beginning. Now imagine reversing time. Galaxies moving closer, space shrinking, everything converging into a single dense point. This is what cosmology suggests about the early universe, a beginning state of extreme density and energy, expanding outward into everything we see today. And now, we move even deeper into the final chapters, where physics begins to blur into philosophy, and existence itself becomes harder to define. The strange rules beneath reality. At the smaller scale, reality stops behaving like solid objects. Now imagine zooming in far beyond atoms, until solid things begin to disappear. At the quantum scale, particles do not behave like tiny balls. They behave like probabilities, not fixed positions, but possibilities that only become definite when measured. Reality, at its deepest level, is not firm. It is uncertain until observed. A particle can exist in multiple states at once. Now imagine something being in 2 places, or 2 states, at the same time. In quantum physics, particles can exist in a state called superposition. They are not forced into one outcome until interaction occurs. It is as if reality is holding multiple versions of itself, waiting for one to be chosen. Observation changes what is real at the quantum level. Now imagine watching something, and your act of watching changes it. In quantum experiments, measurement affects outcomes. This does not mean consciousness changes reality directly, but that interaction itself forces nature to decide a state. Observation is not passive, it is part of the process. Particles can be connected across vast distances instantly. Now imagine 2 objects separated by light years, yet behaving as if they are linked. Quantum entanglement describes particles that remain connected regardless of distance. A change in one affects the other instantly, not through signal, but through shared state. Reality appears interconnected in ways we do not fully understand. The universe at its smallest level is governed by probability, not certainty. Now imagine a world where nothing is fixed. Only likelihoods exist, where outcomes are not determined, but weighted possibilities. At the quantum level, nature does not guarantee results. It only provides chances. Reality becomes statistical, rather than absolute. Reality at its smallest level is not made of things, but interactions. Now imagine zooming in even further than atoms until objects stop existing altogether. At the quantum scale, particles are not solid objects in the traditional sense. They behave more like events or interactions between fields. Reality becomes less like matter and more like relationships happening across space. The universe may be fundamentally made of fields, not particles. Now imagine space itself as invisible layers, stretching everywhere. Modern physics suggests that what we call particles may actually be excitations in underlying fields, like ripples on an invisible ocean. Particles are temporary disturbances in something deeper. Matter is not primary. The fields are. Nothing in the universe is truly isolated. Imagine trying to find something completely separate from everything else. Even particles far apart can remain subtly linked through shared history and interactions. Everything in the universe has, at some point, interacted with something else. In that sense, nothing is fully independent. Everything is part of a continuous chain of cause and effect. The act of measurement forces nature into a single outcome. Now imagine reality holding its breath until you look at it. Before measurement, quantum systems exist as multiple possibilities. When observed, those possibilities collapse into one outcome. Not because reality is created by the mind, but because interaction with the system forces a definite state. Reality becomes final only when it is touched by observation. The deeper you look into reality, the less solid it becomes. Now imagine peeling back layers of existence. Solid objects become molecules. Molecules become atoms. Atoms become particles. Particles become fields. And fields become mathematical descriptions. The deeper science goes, the less solid reality appears. It becomes increasingly abstract, almost like structure without substance. Particles do not have definite positions until they are observed. Now imagine trying to point to something, but it is not in one place. In quantum physics, particles do not always have fixed positions. Instead, they exist as probability distributions, spread out across space. Only when measured do they appear in a specific location. Reality, at its core, is not always pinned down. It is waiting. The same particle can behave like a wave or a particle depending on how you look at it. Now imagine something changing its nature, based only on how you observe it. Light and electrons can behave like particles in one experiment and like waves in another. This dual behavior is not an illusion, but a fundamental feature of reality. The universe adapts its expression depending on interaction. Reality seems to choose outcomes when systems interact. Now imagine a room filled with possibilities, all existing at once. But the moment something interacts with something else, only one outcome becomes real. Not because the others vanish instantly in a physical sense, but because interaction forces a single, observable result. Reality resolves itself through contact. Even empty space is not truly empty. Now imagine complete emptiness. No particles, no light, no matter. And yet, quantum physics suggests even vacuum contains activity. Fluctuations appear and disappear constantly at microscopic scales. Empty space is not nothing. It is a restless background of potential energy. The deeper structure of reality may be mathematical. Now imagine that beneath everything, there is structure, not physical substance, but relationships described by mathematics, patterns, equations, rules. Some theories suggest the universe behaves as if it is fundamentally mathematical in nature. Reality may not be made of things, but of structure and logic. Time may not flow equally at the quantum level. Now, imagine time itself behaving differently at tiny scales. Some interpretations of physics suggest that time may not be smooth or continuous at the smallest levels. Instead, it could emerge from more fundamental processes, meaning time, as we experience it, may not be the deepest layer of reality. Cause and effect may not always behave in a simple, straight line. Now imagine effects influencing causes in subtle quantum ways. In some interpretations, quantum events do not always follow a simple linear story of cause to effect. Instead, relationships can appear interconnected across time in complex ways. Reality may be less like a straight line and more like a web. The universe behaves differently depending on how it is measured. Now imagine reality responding to the type of question you ask it. Different experimental setups produce different outcomes, not because the universe changes its rules, but because different aspects of those rules are revealed. Observation defines what can be known. There is no single picture of reality that contains everything at once. Now imagine trying to take one photograph of everything. Quantum physics suggests that no single description captures all aspects of reality simultaneously. Different models describe different parts, but no single viewpoint contains everything perfectly. Reality is multi-layered, depending on perspective. At the smaller scale, certainty disappears completely. Now imagine trying to predict something, but only probabilities exist. At quantum scales, certainty is replaced by likelihood. The universe does not always give definite answers, only ranges of possibility. Reality becomes fundamentally uncertain at its core. And now, we stand at the edge of something even deeper, where physics begins to blur into philosophy and existence begins to question itself. The universe does not appear to have a built-in meaning we can measure. Now imagine asking the universe a question. What is this all for? And receiving no answer. Science can describe how things behave, how stars form, how life evolves, how consciousness arises, but it does not find a measurable purpose written into the fabric of reality. Meaning, if it exists, is not something the universe broadcasts. It is something minds interpret. Consciousness is the only known experience of existence from the inside. Now imagine everything that exists. Stars, planets, galaxies, but none of it is aware of itself. Then, within one small region of one small planet, something appears that is aware. Conscious experience. The ability to feel existence from the inside is something we only know through being it. We observe everything else from the outside, but consciousness is always lived from within. The universe can be fully described without mentioning consciousness. Now imagine writing down every law of physics, every equation, every interaction, every particle. In principle, the universe can be described mathematically, without ever referring to awareness or experience. And yet, consciousness exists. This creates one of science's deepest puzzles. How does subjective experience arise from objective description? You have never directly experienced anything outside your own mind. Now imagine this carefully. You have never touched reality directly. You have never seen light itself. You have never heard sound itself. You have only ever experienced electrical signals interpreted by your brain. everything you know has passed through a biological filter. Reality is always mediated, never direct. The self is not located in one place in the brain. Now imagine searching for yourself inside your head, looking for a single point where you exist. But neuroscience does not find one. Instead, the sense of self emerges from distributed systems: memory, perception, emotion, prediction, a pattern created by interaction, not a single object. Your identity is continuously reconstructed every moment. Now imagine you as something being rebuilt constantly, not stored, not fixed, but reconstructed every second from memory, sensory input, and ongoing experience. The self is not a static object. It is a continuous process, a story the brain keeps updating. You experience a continuous present, but it is made from fragments of time. Now, imagine the now you feel. It feels instant, whole, continuous. But neuroscience suggests it is assembled from slightly delayed sensory inputs. Your brain stitches moments together to create the feeling of a seamless present. Time, as experienced, is constructed. Even your thoughts are not fully under conscious control. Now imagine thinking, but not fully choosing every thought. Ideas arise spontaneously. Associations appear without invitation. The conscious mind observes much of thinking rather than fully generating it. Thought is partly emergent from processes beneath awareness. The boundary between inner experience and outer reality is not clearly defined. Now imagine trying to find where the mind ends and the world begins. Your senses interpret external signals, but what you experience is internal. There is no direct interface you can point to, only transformations between physical signals and subjective awareness. The boundary is functional, not absolute. Dreams demonstrate that entire worlds can be generated internally. Now imagine a complete universe. Places, people, time, emotion, all appearing without external input. Dreams show that the mind can construct entire immersive realities internally, indistinguishable from waking experience while they occur. Reality does not require external space to feel real. Your sense of time can stretch or compress depending on mental state. Now imagine time changing, not in the world, but in your experience of it. Moments of fear can feel slow. Moments of joy can feel fast. Boredom can stretch seconds into minutes. Attention and emotion reshape temporal perception. Time is experienced, not just measured. You are always interpreting a world that is slightly out of date. Now imagine reality arriving with a delay. Light takes time to reach you. Neural processing takes time to interpret it. By the time you experience anything, it is already slightly in the past. The present moment is always just behind reality itself. The universe does not present a single coherent narrative. Now imagine reality as a story, but without a narrator, without a fixed perspective, without a single timeline that everyone agrees on. Physics suggests there is no universal now or single viewpoint of events. Reality is multi-perspective, depending on where you are and how you move. Meaning emerges from pattern recognition within a neutral universe. Now imagine a universe that simply behaves according to rules. No intention, no direction, no preference. And within it, minds emerge that detect patterns. And from those patterns, meaning is created. Meaning is not necessarily embedded, it is interpreted. The fact that anything is experienced at all remains unexplained. Now imagine stripping everything away: physics, biology, evolution, time. Even then, one question remains. Why is there experience at all? Why does information processing feel like something from the inside? This is one of the deepest unresolved questions in science and philosophy. You are both the observer and the universe observing itself. Now, imagine the universe evolving over billions of years, forming stars, planets, and life, and eventually becoming aware of itself through living beings. In that sense, consciousness is the universe witnessing its own existence, not separate from it, but part of it. And now, we arrive at a quiet place, not an answer, but a perspective. The universe continues, and so do you. Everything you have learned is still happening right now. Now imagine something simple. Nothing has stopped. The universe is still expanding. Life is still evolving. Your brain is still constructing reality. Even as you listen, nothing has paused. Only your attention has moved through it. Understanding does not change existence, only perception. Now imagine knowing everything science can explain, and realizing the world has not become different. Only your interpretation changes. Stars still burn. Time still passes. Consciousness still appears. Understanding does not stop reality. It only softens how we experience it. The universe does not need to be understood to continue existing. Now imagine a universe that does not rely on observation. It does not wait for meaning. It does not pause for awareness. It simply continues, with or without understanding. You are part of something that does not require definition. Now imagine not needing to explain what you are, not needing final answers, not needing resolution. You exist within a system that is still unfolding and does not require completion to continue. If you have made it this far, thanks for watching. This is the Sleepy Universe. See you in the next video. Sleep tight.